Hi, Dolores.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Hi. Hi. Okay.
Oh dear. Susanna,
Yes.
are you having good weather wherever you are?
Well, it's not that bad today.
Good, good.
Thank you. I'm in the north of France in Lille, and it has been raining for so many days that as it's not now, so I just need to be happy with that. What about you?
Oh, we're having excellent weather, but today it's a bit windy.
Okay, yeah, I heard that in Malta it's beautiful. It's summer now.
Yes,
so.
it is summer. Yes, yes.
Good for you.
Well, hopefully we can create an event and the participants would come over.
That would be nice. Yeah, I agree. As soon as we can travel again.
Yes.
Well, it looks it's getting better. Maybe.
Good.
Maybe soon.
Good.
So I think we should start. There are still a few participants that will be joining us. We're supposed to be joining us, but we can start. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. I say special thank you to the speakers that we have. We have a line of speakers. We will be following this agenda. We'll have a welcome address by Director General of MEA, Joseph Farrugia. Then we'll go for a general presentation of the EESC. We'll have an intervention by Mr. Stefano Mallia, another intervention by Ms. Dolores Sabot-Bonici, and we'll have the last intervention about the minimum wage by Ms. Sophie Zimmer. You'll have enough time for questions and answers. The aim of this meeting is to create a discussion and get you informed about the EESC. So I welcome everybody, and I'll give the floor to Mr. Joseph Farrugia.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you, and I thank
Hey, Joe.
Hi. I thank the EESC for this meeting with Maltese employers today, particularly Mr. Georgios Mele, Stefano Mallia, and even Sophie Zimmer for being with us. I think it's essential to have meetings like this because a lot is said about the degree, the extent to which EU institutions manage to connect with their stakeholders in different countries. And I believe it's very important for such institutions to be as close to their publics as possible, and hence to have this meeting being organized jointly between the MEA and the EESC. Of course, we know how important the EESC is in social dialogue, in particular in promoting also employers' views as part of the social dialogue process, which involves employers, unions, and also civil society, which in a way reflects also the social dialogue structures that we have in Malta. And for the benefit of our foreign guests, I can give a short overview of the social dialogue structures in Malta. Mainly, we have a tripartite model practiced in the Malta Council for Economic and Social Development. That is, there are representatives from employer bodies, unions, and also government that take place over there. And the committee discusses, as a consultative committee, of course, okay, and it discusses issues that are related to economic and social affairs. Besides the MCSD, there is also the Employment Relations Board, which focuses more on labor legislation and labor related matters. In Malta, the social dialogue has always been very important. By always, if one looks at our post-independence history, we have also always had the evolution of industrial relations, building relations between employers and unions, and also with the main political parties. Social dialogue at national level often works in parallel to that at EU level on many issues. And indeed, many of the topics that come up at the Malta Council for Economic and Social Development and also at the Employment Relations Board frequently reflect what is being discussed at EU level and also within the European Economic and Social Committee. I can mention a few examples that are on the local agenda. Certainly, the Work-Life Balance Directive, which has been discussed at length at EU level, and there is a directive which has to be transposed at national level. The right to disconnect as well. Incidentally, both these two issues have been put forward by, lobbied for strongly by Maltese MEPs. Pay transparency and also the minimum wage. I note that today's agenda includes an intervention about the minimum wage, and I think it is useful for Sophie Zimmer to have a bit of a background about the minimum wage within the Maltese context, and also to the benefit of the rest of the audience of Maltese employers. We have had the minimum wage in Malta since the 1970s. It is a minimum which is automatically indexed to the inflation rate. Therefore, it is revised annually according to the cost of living. And the cost of living increases based on the household family expenditure survey, which is conducted periodically, and therefore which is used to determine the annual inflation rate. There has been a lot of discussion about the revision in the minimum wage over the years, whether it is adequate, the ratio of the minimum wage to the median wage, and so on. But an important milestone was achieved in 2017 when there was an agreement between all the social partners through which the objective of the agreement was not to increase the minimum wage. Pardon? Hello? Okay. Okay, I think someone was unmuted. What I was saying, I was referring to the agreement on the minimum wage, and what was agreed by the social partners was not to revise the minimum wage per se, but first of all, to have as few people as possible on the minimum wage. And in fact, in Malta, we have less than 3% of employees on the minimum wage, and also to ensure that anyone who is on the minimum wage and is retained in employment with the same employer has a guarantee of automatic increases over the completion of the first and second years of employment. Therefore, our approach was not to ask or to push for a higher minimum wage, knowing that that would, of course, affect wage relativities And it could also be detrimental to vulnerable groups because the first step to join the labor force could be unattainable for them. Therefore, we recognize that. And we said that the target should be to have an economic activity based on value added in such a manner that the minimum wage would almost become superficial. Trying to minimize, in other words, the number of employees on the minimum wage. This ties in strongly with the issue of social dialogue because unions were involved, of course, employer organizations, and we managed to rope in the government and even the opposition party to sign this agreement. So I believe this is clear proof of the strength of social dialogue structures in Malta, and also the need for the European Union to recognize that at times it's better to have a framework within which solutions can be found at national level rather than to have an imposition at EU-wide level. I know that with respect to minimum wage, the proposed paper includes other items as well. So it's not just about the minimum wage, and this is what concerns employers, but it also talks about trade union coverage. It also talks about ratio between the minimum wage and the medium wage, and so on. In Malta, I can say that we do have relatively wide trade union coverage. So according to official statistics, 55% of our labor force is unionized, and consequently, a higher percentage than that is covered by collective agreements. So many employees are free to join or not to join trade unions, and we believe that the freedom of association in this regard is essential. So it is not a matter of setting targets on the number or the percentage of the labor force that should be trade unionized, but rather to have an infrastructure which allows for individual choice, whether employees may join or not to join a trade union. I think I have said enough as an introduction to this event. I am sure that there will be very interesting interventions, and I hope that even the question and answer session will be interesting and informative for all of us. Once again, thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farrugia. The first speaker of the session, I would like to welcome Georgios Melas. He is an international expert in the ECO section responsible for cohesion policy, and he has been in this role since 2018. Georgios, welcome, and please take the floor.
Thank you very much. I welcome you also in our committee, even virtually. It's too pity that we cannot organize these meetings physically. You lose the opportunity to see our beautiful building and drink our beautiful coffee. But it's okay. Can do it also virtually. My name is, as you said, Georgios Melas. I work for the European Economic Social Committee in the ECO section. I would say that I like Malta very much because I like a lot Stefano Malia, who I believe is one of the best members that we have in the committee, and I have worked with him very closely, and I'm happy now that he's president of Group 1. It's one of, I think, an accomplishment also for your country, which is a small country. Greece is also a small country. So I think that Stefano has a lot of competencies, and he deserves to be in this position. Having said that, I want to go to my presentation. our committee is a consultative body, as you probably know. It represents the organized civil society. We are here to make sure to secure that the voice of the organized civil society is heard to the European institutions. It's very important that the committee has members that represent the real economy, the real society. This is very important for the organization of the European institutions. Our committee is not a committee that has members that that are behind the desk in Brussels, in fucking Brussels, and think about the European future and the European spirit, but they are actually on the ground. They work very closely with their societies, with their businesses, with their people. So they not only smell and have feelings of what is happening in member states in Europe, but also have other forms to help the European institutions. So it's very important the role of the committee. So what are the members of our committee? We have 3 groups, as you probably know. We have the employers group, which is employers federations, chambers of commerce, SME organizations. We have the second group, which is the trade unions, the representatives of workers, as I can say. And we have also the third group, which is Diversity Europe. And in this group, we have a variety of organizations that consist of. There are farmers, consumers, NGOs, other professions, the people with disabilities, academics, other cooperatives. So all of them are gathered together to defend their interests. And of course, they often act as intermediaries between decision makers and citizens. It's very important, the role of the committee. The committee, of course, its work is, as I told you, is consultative. This takes form with the opinions that we make. Our main policy instrument, as I can say, is the opinion that we make. With these opinions, we represent the committee in the various fora, meetings, hearings, gatherings, together with other institutions. We can have 3 types of opinions. The first are the mandatory. This means that when we have a new legislative proposal from the Commission, usually from the Commission or the Council, they send us a letter and ask our opinion. We have also the own initiative opinion. The own initiative opinion comes from our organizations. We think that in some areas or some sectors, we should make an emphasis on a concrete issue, and therefore we try to tackle some problems that we think that the European legislation is missing, or we try to press for a new legislative proposal by the Commission or the Council, and that's why we do the own initiative opinions. And last but not least is the exploratory opinions. Exploratory opinions means that one of institutions, and mostly the European Council and the presidency of the European Council, asks from us a concrete opinion on an issue that they want to prioritize during their presidency. This is a very important dimension of our opinions, because in that way we also participate in the procedure of each presidency, and therefore, while we cannot participate in the council meetings. At least in that way, our voices can be heard in the presidency. Stefano was also a co-rapporteur on one of these the exploratory opinions, so he knows very well the procedure and how important it is. So these are the three types of opinions that we have. There are three different groups that represent different interests. We try to be as much as cooperative and reach a consensus in our opinions. It is very important that the debate is constructive, and we have a strong message to send to the Council, to the Parliament, and to the Commission. That's why we make very good open discussions with a lot of negotiations, with a lot of meetings. The members are doing whatever it's possible to reach a consensus and send a strong message to the other institutions. The opinion is adopted in the plenary. The last step of its legislative procedure inside our committee is the plenary, where we have the final adoption of the opinion. The first phase is that we conduct a study group meeting. It's like the work is structured like the work in the European Parliament, where we have the various committees. So here we have also various sections, and members are participating in a study group meeting where there is one rapporteur, or it might be also a rapporteur and co-rapporteur, depending on the content of the opinion. We make usually 2 study group meetings. We can also make a hearing when we think that the topic is very important, so we want to give publicity and visibility to this opinion. And we can also make some study visits to see how things are developing, what is the view of the organized civil society in some countries that we want to see. Now, of course, with the COVID-19, this is more difficult, so we make more virtual meetings. The members, we have an assembly of 329 members. This is from all member states of the EU now, 27 with the Brexit. They have a renewable 5-year term by the Council. And this is I'm coming from also from the Council. I was before in the Greek permanent representation. So I think that one of the biggest advantages of the members of the committee is that this is not a full-time job. It can become a full-time job if people or members are very interested in our work, but they have their own works back home. They have their own works in their countries, and this is a very good advantage and an asset to ECC, because they are not aware of things that are happening in their countries. It's very important that they know what is happening. When you are an MP or when you are an official in the Commission or an expert in the Council, you are in Brussels, you are in your institution, and okay, you have open ears, but it's difficult sometimes to grasp the momentum, to see what is happening real in the European society. So I think that this opportunity is something that our committee has, together, of course, with the Committee of Regions, and that's why I think that our opinion is very important for all institutions. Malta has 5 members in our committee. I know 2 of them, Stefan and Mr. van Brockford. So I think that you do a very good job. You are very active on the committee, which I find it very good. We have 6 sections in our organizational structure. We have the eco section where I belong, which deals with all the economic issues like monetary union, cohesion.
Hello, good afternoon. It's Joanne Brondin from MISCO.
Okay.
Hi. I had to call you to see when I'm going.
Okay, we have an internal. Okay. We deal with fiscal issues as well, with European semester, with budget, MFF. There is the INT section, where is single market, production and consumption. We have the 10 section, which deals with transport, energy, infrastructure, and all the informatics. We have the SOC section, which I believe is Mrs. Zimmer. It's employment, social affairs, and citizenship. We have the NAT section, which is agriculture, rural development, and the environment. And last, we have the REX section, which are the external relations. These are the 6 sections. Members are divided according to their, of course, interests and their needs, and they play a very important role to the determination and contribution of our work. We have also other working bodies like the CCMI, which is the Consultative Commission on Industrial Change, the European Semester Group, which is integrated in our ECO section. We have the Labour Market Observatory, the Sustainable Development Observatory. So they are important working bodies that work in parallel with the sections. Why we need the committee? Why we need the ECC? Because, as I told you, it's the only way for European interest groups to have a formal say on draft EU legislation, but in an institutional setting. We believe strongly in the participatory democracy. It's very important. And now with the conference on the future of Europe, there is a good opportunity to develop further the relationship between the citizens of Europe and the institutions. And last but not least is also that we cover all topics, that topics that have concerns in European citizens are things that our members know and can handle. So I'm saying we're not experts to everything, but our members surely in their everyday lives in their field have the ability to suggest and solve important issues. So I think that we have to differentiate by saying that we are not a lobby organization, we are an institution, and of course we are multilingual. We have so many. Our members are coming from 27 member states. There's full respect of the origin and the nationality of all members. All members and all member states are equal, and I think that the participation of in the committee is very crucial. That is all I have to say. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for hearing my intervention. I'm open to questions, or we can have later the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgios, for your intervention and for explaining the vast structure of the European Economic and Social Committee. It sounds bureaucratic and complicated, so you tried to make it easier for us to understand. But but as you said, it has a very crucial role, and it is important for employers to understand the background and the policies that are being discussed at EU level, because finally and ultimately they affect the national policy as well. So thank you very much for your intervention. I now welcome Mr. Stefano Malia, who is the president of the EESC Employers Group 1. I don't think you need a lot of introduction, but Mr. Malia works towards ensuring that Europe and the single market in particular continue to provide opportunities for employers to grow and be successful. He is also the former president of the Malta Chamber of Commerce, council member and member of the Chamber Statute Revision Committee, a member of the Malta EU Business Promotion Committee, and he is currently a partner at EMCS. Welcome, Mr. Malia. I think you are muted.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I want to say a special good afternoon to my friend Georgios, and also to Sophie, and I believe there was also Susanna. I'm not seeing her now, but I think she's online as well. And to my colleague and also member from the Employers Group, to Dolores Hambout, to Doris, who is now a full member of Group 1 of the Employers Group within the committee. As you said, Sharon, it sounds it probably sounds a bit bureaucratic and very heavy. First and foremost, to try and put it a bit into to try and assist the people who are on this event to visualize a bit better what we are. I compare it to what locally we refer to as the MCESD, the Malta Council for Economic and Social Development. Okay? So the MCESD is the local forum, the local structure whereby the social partners, so trade unions, employers, and other interests are represented. Now, similarly to that, we have the European Economic and Social Committee, which is at a European level. So in Malta, we have the local and the Maltese representatives. In the EESC, you have the European representatives. And as Yorgos said, the committee is made up of the three groups, where it is the Employers Group, where I am president. In the Employers Group, we are 106 members, representing all the 27 member states and representing 106 different employer organizations across the whole of the EU. So the big advantage of all this is that you have members from all the EU member states. You have members coming from different organizations representing different interests. So it could be we have members, of course, representing industry. We have members representing even the agriculture sector, crafts sector. You would have members representing services, the financial services, even the digital services. So it's quite a vast variety of interests. And of course, the big advantage is that you are bringing all these people together. But before going into all this, I also wanted to present some concrete examples of work that we have carried out. In fact, for example, together with Georgos, first I was co-rapporteur on an opinion concerning structural funds. Okay, on the importance and the impact of structural funds, of projects carried out by EU money, to put it bluntly. Okay, so we were looking into how important and what impact these projects can have. And because I am always keen to make sure that we don't sit behind the desk and write something from what we think of, we organized a field visit to Greece, where together with other colleagues, we went and we visited on the ground projects which were taking place in Greece using EU money. So we visited a project where it was carried out by an NGO who works in the field of on female on
women protection, yes.
women protection. That was the right word. women protection. We also visited a project where it was a museum where they had historical artifacts. We also visited a superstrada, a highway, all with EU funds. And we wanted to meet the people who are running these projects so that we understand what kind of difficulties they had first in applying for the EU funds, and then also the difficulties they face in running the projects. And we visited projects from this one of the protection of women, which was, I think, about 100,000 euros, to obviously visiting a highway of national importance, which linking key areas within Greece of millions of projects. So we tried to see a bit to the two extremes of the spectrum. And there we wanted to meet the people on the ground. So I didn't want to go to the Commission and ask them what do they think the difficulties are of people to use the money, or to go to the European Parliament, or to go to the Council, but we wanted to meet the people on the ground. So that is, and from there we learned lessons, and then we put suggestions forward on how to make it easier to use, to access the money and then to implement projects. Similarly, I was also rapporteur on an opinion concerning immigration. Immigration is a key issue for us, you all know. And again, because I didn't want to sit behind the desk and write an opinion, I insisted that we do field studies, field visits as well. And we visited what they call the hotspots, which are basically EU centers set up to receive or to welcome the first people who are saved out at sea. So we visited the hotspot in Sicily, and we visited the hotspot also in Greece. And there I met the people who are running these centers, but I also met the immigrants who had just arrived there. So for example, I remember speaking to a 16-year-old boy from Nigeria. He had just landed the day before. He had just been saved out at sea the day before, obviously crossing from Libya. And I was asking him what he went through, why he left, and what he saw and what he thinks. And for example, one of the things he told me was that he had just crossed the big lake. I told him, what big lake are you talking about? And he was referring to the Mediterranean Sea. And so for him, even the concept of Mediterranean Sea didn't really fit in his head. I remember speaking to a lady who was pregnant in one of the camps in Greece, from I forgot from North Africa, but I can't remember exactly from where. And I asked her as well why, carrying a child in her womb, she had left from her country. And she actually showed me a video, now true or not, I don't know, but she showed me a video on her phone of people in her village being shot. And she told me, this is why I left. And this obviously brings to you very, very, very hard facts and truths on the ground. Now, closer to our agenda maybe of employers, I was also rapporteur on, it was my first report in the committee on online, we call it gaming, but in Europe it's called online gambling, so that we are clear. Okay, and of course the interest for me to be a rapporteur there was this is an important industry for Malta. But again here, I experienced firsthand that there are a lot of interests of people who don't want this industry to exist because they see it as gambling, and it causes gambling addiction, it causes people to be ruined, families to be ruined, and it brings with it a lot of negative issues. Okay, so I faced this, and then I faced a lot of, it was my first opinion, and it was a lot of under a lot of pressure. So in carrying out this opinion, I met some of the gaming authorities. For example, I remember meeting the French gaming authority. I remember also speaking to the German gaming authority. I also met gaming companies, of course, in Malta. So I visited their premises to see what kind of security they have in terms of ensuring that, number one, their customers are protected from falling into over gambling or falling into addiction. So I wanted to see the kind of preventive measures there are. I wanted to see also how they protect the data of their customers. Okay, and I also wanted to understand, because there's a big amount of illegal online gambling which takes place with illegal sites, where if you play on them, you have absolutely no protection, and you might actually lose everything because they are illegal. So again, this is another. This is just to give you a bit of an example of issues that we deal with. Now, the committee, the European Economic and Social Committee, and I want to be a bit aware of time, is established by the European treaties. Okay, so this is not some committee that a few people met together and said, let's set up a committee. No, this is a committee which was set up in the treaties by the founding fathers of Europe. Okay, and it was set up, as Georgios said, to represent civil society. So our role is to represent the interests, in my case, the interests of employers. The interests of employers in Malta to do what? That I go to Brussels, okay, and I try to ensure as much as possible that when new legislation is being put in place, the interests even of a small country like Malta are taken into consideration. And again, another practical example. At one time, I remember we were discussing an opinion concerning the use of the emergency funds of the EU. So the EU has emergency funds, solidarity funds, that if a country goes through a certain natural disaster, they can call on these funds to be able to basically recover. And I remember that in one of the descriptions in the proposed directive, there was written that a country is eligible if there is flooding of banks, of river banks. Now, where does that leave Malta? Malta has no rivers. So that would have meant that Malta is out of this legislation. So what I did was that I pushed in an amendment which talked about the flooding that which we have all experienced, especially in the past, whereby we have sudden heavy torrential rainfall, and we have roads which are destroyed and cars which are destroyed, etc., etc. And this was taken on into our report and then presented to the Commission and to the Parliament. But this is again to give you a bit of a feel of the issues we deal with. As Georgios said, we have the 6 sections, which we have, for example, NAT, which deals a lot. The NAT section, which deals a lot with agriculture. So there they are talking about farmers, about fishermen as well, because it's the fishing industry. Then we have the internal market and their taxation, a very important issue for us is discussed. And so when we say discussed, what is the process? The Commission would be proposing legislation, okay? And by the treaties, because they are forced by the treaties, this is the word to use, they have to consult us before passing through this legislation. And there we can give our opinion and try to impact and try to influence the legislation. Now, it's also an opportunity because it gives you good access to the key policymakers in Brussels. And I'll give you some examples. At the moment, given that I am president of the employers group, I am inviting different commissioners to come to my group, to the employers group, to have a debate with the commissioner. So I had the Commissioner Breton, who's the commissioner responsible for industrial policy. I invited him over to our group, and we had a very good debate with him. I invited the commissioner responsible for social policy, Commissioner Schmidt, and we had a very good debate with him. Of course, if you're building a relationship, we will have the Commissioner of Agriculture in the coming weeks as well, in July. And where again, the idea is to try and influence and impact pushing the employer's agenda. Similarly, you might have heard of the Porto Summit. Okay, just last week or 2 weeks ago now, there was a summit, a very important summit in Porto, where me as president of the employers group was also invited to attend and to participate. So I went up to Portugal through a lot of different connections. You can imagine at this point in time that connectivity is very difficult. So I had 3 flights up and 3 flights down. But I also had the opportunity to participate in a workshop where, and this is not to boast or to something, but it's to give a real example of the opportunities and the possibilities it presents. Where I was a speaker with Macron, with the Commissioner Vestager, with the Prime Minister of Finland, with the Prime Minister of Estonia, and the President of Romania. And then there was myself and another 2 speakers. So we were 8 speakers. And this is a wonderful opportunity which can come about only through the committee. And this is now where I come to the local context. And this is where I try as much as possible to be able to get the employers' bodies and to basically coordinate so that any key issues which we need to address, we are informed, Doris and myself, we are informed, so then we can take these back to the Brussels agenda. And in fact, what I am doing now, every 3 months, I meet all the presidents of the employer bodies together with Doris, and there we discuss a Brussels agenda. Because there is always a bit of an issue between the gap between the Brussels agenda and the local agenda. Because very often, what do we find? We find that proposed legislation is discussed at a European level. Then when it becomes legislation, it suddenly becomes an issue for the local scene, for the local markets, for the local economy. But at that point, it's then too late to influence the Brussels agenda because the legislation is already enacted. So what I try to do is I try to reduce this gap by anticipating, by discussing together and telling them what the agenda items are at EU level, so that then I can bring the Maltese concerns to Brussels. I would like to, there's really a lot more that I could say, because as you can see also, I'm very passionate about the whole issue, but I would like to stop here because I understand also that online it is not always easy to follow, and I would also like to allow enough time for Doris and the other speakers as well. So I would conclude by thanking MEA, the Malta Employers, well done for the initiative, and well done to Doris for the initiative, for organizing this event. And also a big thank you to Sophie, to Susanna, and to Georgos for enabling us to have this event. And of course, I'm available to any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefano, for explaining tangible actions that you are doing in the committee. It's important to have these like Georgios said, that you are assets, and I think you truly are, that you are able to identify the challenges and the needs of the employers after all, and of course identify opportunities for the changing market and the labor market of today. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Dolores Samut-Bonici. She is the Senior Vice President of the Malta Employers Association, and also an EESC member in the Employers Group. Dolores has always been an active local and international speaker for the promotion of entrepreneurship and women empowerment, and she needs no introduction with the audience that we have today. Dolores. You are muted, Doris.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your introduction, Sharon. This event today has started by the kind invitation of Mr. Cillian Lohan, Vice President of 10 Section at the EESC. For the invitation was put forward to reach out to European member countries by this virtual visit to the EESC. And MEA accepted this kind invitation, and with the effort from both sides of the Secretariat, we have mentioned them, Stefan has mentioned them before me, we are letting employer members look inside what goes on at EESC. Now, I risk repeating myself because between Georgios and Stefano, they have explained really how it works. But I am going to give you sort of my bit of experience, because I have only been a member for about 7 months. When I first was nominated as a member, I was told that the EESC was the platform where social partners from the European member states discuss, propose, study, report back any and every topic that might be raised from the Commission and other related European structures and bodies. This happens, but also so much more. it is unfortunate that in my since my appointment, I have not had the opportunity to visit Brussels for and not tasted your coffee, Georgios, and because obviously of the situation. And I have also missed out on the preliminary training and the valuable networking. However, this will come, I'm sure. Having said that, it did not stop me from participating in various study groups and topics from different sections, because the topics are very, very interesting, very much what we call hot issues, especially within our culture. And for example, I have been in the transport, energy and infrastructure 10 section. I have been involved also in the agriculture, rural energy and the environment, and still am. And also the employment, the one which is most important, the employment, social affairs and citizenship, which is the SOC section. This, of course, is sort of my favorite, and where because it comes in line with, as an employers group, it is within our remit of work. And there are, of course, many others. The work at the EESC, I am not going to repeat what the others said, so I will skip this part. But the important thing is that while forming our studies and finalizing the reports, all the information on the given topic is all comes together after very, very heavy discussion, and sometimes even how do I say, very passionate discussions, because each group address their own agenda until the report comes to a final opinion, and it is then voted upon by all the members. And when this is adopted, it is then referred to when related legislation is being prepared. And hopefully what the report says is taken on board, or at least considered. As regards to as an employer, it is of utmost importance to know what comes out from EESC. And I'm talking to our local employers. Firstly, to keep updated in general. And then, more importantly, it's to use this information when planning ahead. The word foresight surely means has a very different and more significant meaning during this recovery stage and the new world of work that we shall be facing in the next few months. It is a time where we are reviewing, reevaluating what we have that used to work, but now has to change, because either it does not work anymore, it might not be efficient enough, there is no need or place for it in our system, or it will affect our business competitivity if we are not on board and heed this evolving new normal. For example, I am involved in the SMEs discussions about AI and the latest technologies. If businesses miss out on gearing up towards AI and all the other technologies, they are not going to be competitive. And this is imminent. This is not, well, it will happen maybe in 2 or 5 years' time. No, it's happening today. We are already almost late. Because as other businesses evolve and come on board with these new applications, we stand to lose our chance, and we shall miss the bus, and obviously it will not be good for our business. In my 7 months experience at the EESC, this has instilled in me the need to look through the new paths opening for us in the future of Europe. The large internal market and its set of non-negotiable values. Solidarity, as demonstrated by the Resilience and Recovery Facility. the support to strengthen our social market economic model, where a sustainable competitive economy and well-developed social policies go hand in hand. The future of Europe is being formed and guided through the Green Deal and digitalization, aiming for the growth strategy with prosperity, sustainability, social justice, quality jobs, and encouraging entrepreneurship and innovation. The proposed and shared ideas coming from different EU member states representatives have shown that there is a long and difficult road to climb through divergence and reach the quality living each country aspires for. The different cultures clash with different meanings of words like harassment, gender equality, rule of law, even the basic ones like human rights, fair trade, freedom, and yes, even the word democracy itself. The level of understanding and implementation is very much affected by each country's culture, beliefs, and fundamental traditions. I go back to the word foresight. If we are not aware of the aims of the new legislation coming in, businesses can risk making failed investments. And I bring to you an example which is very much in my field as a business. In industrial waste management, for example, there is a lot going on at the moment with the circular economy and the recycling issues and addressing materials even from production stage to the stage where they are waste. If a company decides to, for example, install a new washout machinery that cleans the production line at the end of the day, and these are not simple items that cost a euro or two. These are items which sometimes run into millions. If they do not know the basic strategies going to be implied because of the circular economy, they are going to fail in a couple of years, because that machinery is going to be illegal. Now, this is a perfect example of having foresight into the business. And having foresight isn't just about imagining things, it's about informing yourself. And today we look upon information as one of the tools to lead us ahead, because things are happening so fast. And it is a time, the recovery procedure we're going through at the moment, it is a time of change. So like we Maltese say, think 100 times and do it once, but think well before. So this is all about foresight. And in the business world, this is a very, very valuable word. I have worked with titles like the work-life balance, the right to disconnect. Each one of them sometimes contradicts itself. For example, if we talk about the right to disconnect, when and I wouldn't say started, because a lot of companies had started teleworking even before COVID, but with the right to disconnect applicable at the stage where we have increased teleworking, for example, we can see the problems coming up when we talk about full flexibility of the employee while they are working from home, and the contradiction that comes up with the right to disconnect. So you can, when you put it into action, it means that the employee who's at home has the right to decide in whichever hours they work, but if they are going to absorb the right to disconnect benefit, then what is the time available to them to answer their usual work obligations? So, you know, these are examples of, and rightly so, Giorgio said that sometimes we have to think about the most important thing while being at EESC, that we are still in businesses, we are still in associations, we are in touch with the real life out there that touches the employer. What the employer goes through, you have the pulse on it. And this is what makes us work closely and bring to light any problems arising to face the new legislation and address it. I have worked also on the pay transparency issue, and have been to a lot of meetings about the pillar of social rights, immigration, AI and digitalization. This, I think, is, as I mentioned before, a very worrying factor, because the level of people on the minimum wage, I am addressing this, picking up from what Joe said about the minimum wage. I am saying that level of people who maybe can be described as vulnerable, some of whom are completely illiterate. And I'm afraid that if we don't do something about this level of vulnerable people, they will miss on the digitalization issue and will eventually become obsolete and unemployable. And this is something very worrying, because they will be our burden, our society's collateral. So we must think and also devise digital applications that work by pictures or icons, or but not words. You know, I have seen examples of these. So this is to what extent we discuss and we go through certain subjects. Anyway, I think it's best to leave some time for the questions and answers. I have shared my experiences with you, and I take on my work at the EESC with a certain passion, because going back to my experience as an employer, I know that when someone pinches, it hurts. So we need to address the issues before they happen.
Thank you very much for your intervention, Doris. I think you mentioned very important points. The special focus on foresight, I think it's very important. Even now that we are still in COVID, you know, the idea of having tangible things that employers will be working on. Before going to the questions, we have the last intervention by Sophie Zimmer. Sophie, she is a policy officer at the EESC in the section of employment, social affairs and citizenship. Sophie, are you with us?
Yes, hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello.
Welcome, Sophie, and I'll give you the floor.
Thank you. So yes, I've joined the EESC and the section for employment, social affairs and citizenship 2 years ago, working on the files related to culture, youth, social inclusion and citizenship. And I've very recently taken over also the coordination of the Labor Market Observatory here at the EESC. I was the administrator together with another colleague in my team, responsible for the coordination of the opinion last year on the decent minimum wages across Europe. And more recently, I was also the administrator of the recently adopted opinion on the adequate minimum wages directive here at the EESC. So I would like to give you a very short presentation of the section I'm working in, the SOC section as it is abbreviated, and before presenting the work done on these last two opinions on decent minimum wages across Europe and the adequate minimum wages directive. So the section for Employment, Social Affairs and Citizenship prepares the committee's work in several policy areas, including employment and working conditions, education and training, fundamental and citizens' rights, health, social policy and social rights, gender equality, disability issues, inclusion of the Roma people, migration and asylum, and justice and home affairs, including immigration. So the main activities of the section include its work on the fight against and the recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, fundamental rights and the rule of law, the European Pillar of Social Rights and accompanying measures, the future of work, as well as migration and asylum. More specialized tasks are carried out in our section so-called permanent bodies, which are the Labor Market Observatory, which I've just mentioned, the Group on Fundamental Rights and the Rule of Law, the Thematic Study Group on Immigration and Integration, the Thematic Study Group on Disability Rights, and the Thematic Study Group on the Inclusion of the Roma. So coming to the EESC work, most recent work on the minimum wage, our colleague, EESC colleague Georgios, has given you an introduction on the work related to opinion. So yes, in view of this opinion, in view of the European Commission legislative proposal on a decent minimum wage, the coordinators of the Committee on Employment and Social Affairs in the European Parliament had decided at their meeting in December 2019 to request the consultation of the European Economic and Social Committee on the topic of decent minimum wages across Europe. And so the Parliament endorsed the request by the Committee on Employment and Social Affairs to consult the EESC and ask for an exploratory opinion on this topic, decent minimum wages across Europe. And so the rapporteurs at the EESC for this opinion were Mr. Stefano Malia, President of the EESC Employers Group, and Mr. Oliver Röpke, President of the EESC Workers Group. The work on this opinion developed throughout the year 2020. And in the preparation of this opinion, it was important for the EESC to obtain the views of relevant stakeholders at national and European level. So apart from the study group meetings, which are an integral part of the work on opinion, as explained previously, and in which the draft opinion is being prepared and discussed with the other study group members working on the opinion. For this file, country visits in several countries were planned, as well as a public hearing with EU-level actors. So for the country visits, 5 member states, namely Germany, Poland, Romania, Spain, and Sweden, were selected based on the criteria on minimum wage setting institutions in EU member states, which the Commission identified in the first phase social partners consultation in 2020. So discussions were planned with representatives from the government, national wage setting bodies, the national social partners, and anti-poverty organizations. However, as you can imagine, due to the outbreak of the pandemic, the visits could not take place, and they were replaced with a semi-structured questionnaire, as well as follow-up video conferences with the relevant stakeholders. The virtual public hearing on decent minimum wages across Europe took place in June 2020 with the participation of Commissioner Schmidt. The aim was to gather the points of view of social partners and other civil society organizations on this topic, and to hold a discussion on the setting of minimum wages and its effects, also with the participation of representatives of European institutions. In September 2020, this opinion on decent minimum wages across Europe was adopted at the September plenary session of the EESC. So just to underline a few key points of this opinion, in this document, the committee underlines that in the context of the economic recession following the COVID pandemic, coordinated and decisive short and medium-term policies are needed to safeguard employment and income, as well as to ensure rapid and sustainable relaunch of economic activities, competitiveness, and a well-functioning social and economic model. It stresses, the opinion stresses that wages, including minimum wages, are an important aspect of the EU social market economy model, and that ensuring decent minimum wages in all the member states would help in achieving a number of EU objectives. It acknowledges that there are concerns regarding possible EU action in the area. Among the key concerns are that the EU has no competence to act on pay, including pay levels, and that such action could interfere with the social partners' autonomy and undermine collective bargaining systems. That opinion welcomed the opportunity to further contribute to the discussion on what action could be taken at EU level, taking into account the different realities in member states and division of competences between the EU and national level. And it fully appreciates the complexity of the issues involved in the debate and recognizes that minimum wages are not the silver bullet that will solve all problems. As you know, on 28th of October 2020, the European Commission then proposed the directive on adequate minimum wages in the EU to ensure that the workers in the Union are protected by adequate minimum wages, allowing for a decent living wherever they work. The proposal for a directive is based on the Article 153(1)(b) of the Treaty on the Functioning of the EU on Working Conditions, and it follows the two-stage consultation of social partners carried out in 2020. So given time constraints, and also as I suppose you're familiar with it, I will not go through the details of the proposal here. And I wish here to explain that at the European Parliament sitting in November 2020, this proposal was announced and referred to the committee responsible for its consideration. And so the Parliament consulted the European Economic and Social Committee on this proposal. So this time, the European Economic and Social Committee drafted an opinion. This is the second opinion I would like to refer to today on the Adequate Minimum Wages Directive. And this time the rapporteur were Mrs. Milena Angelova, representing Group 1, so the employers, and Mrs. Cinzia Del Rio from Group 2, the workers group. And this opinion was adopted recently on the 24th of March 2020. However, the debates, the passionate debates have been mentioned in the earlier interventions, and indeed the debates surrounding this file reflect the different views and positions on the matter. There have been very intense debates among the different members involved, and these often divergent positions between social partners as well as between countries within and beyond the EESC are reflected in the complex debates that have surrounded the file. So I would like here to mention, as I did for the previous opinion, just a few key points of the adopted opinion as it is available on the EESC website as well, before addressing the counter opinion that had been tabled by the employers group in the context of the plenary session. So in the EESC opinion on the Adequate Minimum Wages Directive, the committee strongly supports the underlying goal for Europe to lead the way from fragility towards new vitality by creating opportunities and promoting innovation, sustainable growth and fair competition in order to stimulate upward economic and social convergence. it agrees with the overall objectives of the proposal and expects that it's carefully designed to respect national traditions, laws, and practices, and that it leaves discretion for adaptation to the domestic context in its obligation. The committee supports the objective of increasing collective bargaining coverage according to national laws and practices and in full respect of and compliance with the division of competences and autonomy of social partners. And it believes that the representativeness of social partners is an important factor as it guarantees the democratic mandate. So, however, ahead of the SOC section meeting, that is the meeting of the EESC members belonging to the section for employment, social affairs and citizenship, which take place before the EESC plenary sessions and where the draft opinion is presented, several amendments have been tabled to this draft opinion. And as no agreement or compromise could be reached between the two rapporteurs on these amendments, they have been put to the vote and eventually have been accepted at this meeting. Following this, in the context of the plenary session, the employers group in the European Economic and Social Committee massively voted against the EESC opinion on the Commission's proposal on adequate minimum wages in the EU and tabled the counter opinion I was referring to. And this counter opinion has been appended to the EESC opinion. So just a few words here as well about the counter opinion. In this counter opinion, the employers group stresses the concern that European statutory minimum wage policy could potentially have negative effects on employment, especially in the case of young people and low-skilled workers, and could aggravate non-compliance, which could also push a number of low-wage workers towards informality. According to this counter opinion, undeclared work leads to unfair competition and deteriorates the social and tax systems and disrespects workers' rights, including the rights to decent working conditions and a minimum wage. In the counter opinion, employers also question the legal base of the Commission's proposal. There are divergent views within the EESC on whether any EU legal initiative under the Article 153, especially a directive, would be legitimate. Among the key concerns is the one that the EU has no competence to act on pay, including pay levels, and that such action could interfere with the social partners' autonomy. So this is in a nutshell the most recent EESC work on these two opinions, the opinion on the decent minimum wages across Europe adopted in 2020 and the opinion on the adequate minimum wages adopted this year. They are both available on the website of the EESC. I'm here for any questions, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sophie. You further explained the works of the committee. It is now time for questions and answers. I don't know if we have any questions from the audience. You can either use the chat or you just unmute your microphones, and I will be able. Any questions? Yes, Joseph.
Hello. First of all, I'd like to thank the committee for giving us this opportunity of having a closer look at the workings of the committee. I'd like to address my question to Stefano. And before putting the question, I'd like to congratulate you, Stefano, on your appointment as president of the Employers Group. You make us proud. Now for the question. I am a member of the Employer Interest Group of the Advisory Council for Safety and Health. And we are getting increasing pressure on tripartitism. we are being faced with a situation that, due to the changing tapestry of the labor market, we are being accused that tripartitism is not really representative of the labor market internationally. I wonder whether you are experiencing a similar pressure. The pressure is coming from groups representing the self-employed, platform workers, immigrant workers. Are you having a similar experience?
Thank you, Joe. It's good to see you, first and foremost, as always. And thank you for your kind words. No, Joe, I can't say that we are encountering similar or anything of that kind of pressure. What I can tell you for sure is that clearly, as you describe it, the changing tapestry of the labor market, where we have platform workers, where we have increasingly short-term workers. So that, yes, is bringing a lot of complexities to the situation, and they are topics which, again, are being discussed at our level. And it is always a struggle to balance between protecting the rights of these workers, because these workers have rights and they must be protected. But on the other hand, also we as employers want to ensure that whilst protecting rights, we are also maintaining flexibility, because flexibility on the labor market is key for us in terms of competitiveness, and in terms also, especially at this moment in time, in terms of recovery. So the platform workers, migrant workers, short-term workers, self-employed, these are all niches which are being dealt with or have been dealt with very recently, but they are dealt with within the sphere of the social dialogue which is established in Europe. So you have the social partners which are formally recognized. So you would have on the employer side, you have Business Europe, SME United, SGI United, SGI Europe. So those are the employers. And then on the union side, you have ETUC, the European Trade Unions Association, Confederation. Sorry. So it is within that sphere that this discussion is taking place, and not we are not really faced with any pressure that this does not represent the interests of the various tapestries, as you call them, in the labor market today.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I think there is Rafel.
Yes, Rafel Sherry from Jobs Plus.
Hello, thanks very much. And thanks for this webinar, and also thanks to the speakers. Stefano, you mentioned the European funding and how employers strive to apply for funding, and unfortunately, most of the time, they struggle in order to get something in return. We at Jobs Plus, we are the main, let's say, key player within being the public employment service in Malta. We manage 2 aid schemes. We tried to simplify a lot, and this was appreciated by employers. And in fact, the number of applications is increasing, but unfortunately, we have to work within a legal framework, which is the General Block Exemption Regulation. Having percentages like aid intensities of 50%, 60%, 70% for small enterprises. So we are receiving applications for just €100, €200, very, very minimum amount. How and what is the input that maybe you and your team is putting and pushing on the Commission to simplify such regulations, particularly the General Block Exemption Regulation, not to mention the ESF regulation as well, but aid intensities derived from GBER. And I do, on a daily basis, I try to promote the European funding. This is one of my roles with employers. But then at the same time, I know that the reimbursement, the amount of money which the employers are receiving is very few. And considering the paperwork and considering the processes involved, then receiving just €100, it's a pity, that we are at one point promoting the European funding, but at the other end, we have all these remit frameworks that we have, legal frameworks that we have to work with, which I feel they are too bureaucratic, and applying such rules on our labor market and on our employers, this is having an impact on the uptake that unfortunately it's not too high. Thank you.
Yes, first of all, Rachel, it's good to see you because I haven't seen you before. And Rachel, for those who don't know, Rachel has a very strong knowledge on EU funding because he has been for a long time in this area, and I've worked very closely with Rachel. So it's certainly good to see you. Yes, Rachel, I totally understand what you're saying. I understand from 2 points of view. From the private sector point of view, because as you know, I am involved in that kind of work where I try to assist the private sector to access funds and also, but I also understand a bit the, let's say, from the Commission or from the authorities' point of view, where, as you know, Rachel, the major preoccupation is number one is to prevent fraud, because this is where they are always preoccupied, and possibly they sometimes go overboard in putting in safeguards, and also to control state aid. So these are the preoccupations, I would say, of the Commission and of regulators. Now, the key question always is, how can we always make it more possible or easier for especially SMEs to be able to apply for these funds? And yes, bureaucracy always remains an issue, and also the impact, because as you say, to apply for €100 leaves no impact whatsoever. And what I can say is that I was involved in the EESC opinion on the next funds, which is for the 2021-2027 funds. And when I saw the regulations, the new regulations put forward, I could see that there were already some improvements in terms of bureaucracy and in terms of controls and in terms of reporting. However, as always, still a lot needs to be done. Now, I know I am sounding vague and I don't have a silver bullet to offer to you, Rachel. This is the truth.
No.
What I can say is two things. Number one is that we always continue to push to ensure that SMEs, and when I say SMEs, I'm also thinking about our micro enterprises of 2-3 enterprises, and to try and make the funds as accessible as possible to them. That's number one. So that is always on our agenda, and that is always something we work for. On the other hand, if we can identify specific issues, what I can offer is that we can have a meeting. I would need a full explanation of the issue, and then I will see what avenues we have to be able to tackle this issue. Now, it could be formally through asking for what was referred to as an own initiative opinion, or we could, whilst I have meetings with the commissioners or people from the Commission, to pass on these messages. So, but it's important for me, first and foremost, is to understand the full dynamic of the problem, if possible. Now, I'm seeing that Georgios also has something to contribute. So please go ahead, Georgios.
Yes, thank you, Stefano. Exactly, the new CPR, the new Common Provisions Regulation, has introduced the simplified cost option, which is very important. They have made the thematic concentration more, I think, open and more clearer. And I want to say also that now with the pandemic, the opportunity is also with the Recovery and Resilience Fund, this facility. So this is also a good opportunity for the businesses to profit from this. I don't know what happened in Malta, how the social partners were involved on this. If the Employers Association was included in the implementation of the programs, but now it's also a very good opportunity with the national resilience plans. A lot of EU money will be distributed to member states so that also SMEs and businesses can take opportunity on that. This is what I want to say.
Thank you very much for your interventions. We have to close the session. It has been very, very interesting. I would like to thank the speakers, Giorgio, Stefano, Dolores, and Sophie. Thank you very much for being with us and for your interventions. And I hope this won't be the last visit. Thank you as well to Susanna for coordinating and the administration done.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for everybody.
Thank you. Have a nice evening. Bye bye.
You too. Bye.
Good evening.
Yorgos,
Bye, everyone.
Yorgos, I will be in Brussels in June. I'll come and look for you.
Huh?
June, I will be in Brussels. I will come and look you
Well,
up
next week.
for the plenary.
Okay.